In about 2 weeks, the CDC eviction moratorium is set to expire. That means landlords can start evicting people who've lost their jobs during the pandemic. And so far, legal aid attorneys say they've already seen a spike in eviction cases. Our Kenny Shadiz spoke with Legal Services Alabama about your rights as a tenant and what you should know if the moratorium ends.
I'm about double to triple my normal caseload, and it's almost all evictions.
Holly Ray with Legal Services Alabama in Huntsville says the CDC eviction moratorium has been in place for 9 months and was extended 3 times. June 30th could be the final extension.
The CDC moratorium didn't do anything to deny your landlord their ability to get their rent paid. It just said that you couldn't be on the street, put on the street for owing it.
This means you as a tenant still owe rent that was past due.
The hope is that most people who would be impacted by the CDC moratorium expiration and would owe a large back balance have availed themselves of the rental assistance program.
There are programs available locally for Huntsville and Madison County residents. If the moratorium does expire this month, Ray says it's illegal for a landlord to shut off heating, air conditioning, water, and gas lines.
So one of the disturbing things that has come out of the CDC moratorium is that you got a rise in landlords seeking self-help evictions, basically making a property uninhabitable rather than going to court.
She says evictions must go through the legal process. Even if you lose the case, you have about a month's time before you actually have to leave your home. Ray encourages both tenant and landlord to keep their communication lines open.
Landlords tend to be good and decent people and tend to understand when they're offered a good and decent explanation for what's going on, and when tenants were doing what the CDC moratorium required of them, which was making a partial payment to the best of their ability as close to the full rent as they could.
And the Legal Services of Alabama says there could be an extension through July simply because some rental assistance programs started later. Putting the Valley first, Kenny Shadiz, WZDX News.